My parents demanded I sell my house to cover my brother's crypto debt, then turned on me when I refused what I exposed, left her begging strangers for help. Subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Growing up, I paid for my own school clothes, while Everett got designer sneakers every season. I'd work shifts after school, he's come home to new game consoles. When I graduated top of my class, they took him to Disneyland for barely passing math. I believed if I stayed strong, they'd see my worth. But strength didn't earn love in our house, it just made me their safest burden to carry. Nancy always said, "You're the responsible one." I took it as pride until I realized it meant unpaid babysitting, skipped birthdays, and covering for Everett's tantrums. Once, I missed a college interview to drive him home from detention. They praised me for stepping up. Never asked why he needed rescuing. I thought being the fixer meant I mattered. But I was just the family bandage, disposable once the bleeding stopped. When I refused to sell the house, my phone exploded. Nancy called sobbing, said I'd abandoned my real family. Wallace emailed long rants about respect and duty. Everett texted once, "Do it, or you'll regret it." Then mutual friends messaged, concern for my mental health. It wasn't concern, it was caution disguised as care. My living room felt invaded. Every photo frame stared like an accusation. Saying no wasn't rebellion, it was survival. Sawyer came over after the third night I didn't sleep. She found me pacing with a bat in my hand. "You look haunted," she said. I told her about the late night calls, the strange car parked outside. She didn't say I was paranoid. She believed me. Meanwhile, Caitlin said I was overreacting, that family fights get messy. But this wasn't a fight, it was war, and I was already bleeding. Nancy sent a handwritten letter, pages of guilt. "We gave you everything," she wrote, underlining every time she skipped lunch so I could eat. I remembered being 10, cooking my own meals while she watched game shows. Her letter was an apology, it was emotional blackmail, dipped in nostalgia. I showed it to Adeline, she didn't flinch. "That's how they get you," she said. "Rewrite the story until you feel like the villain." Everett showed up at my job, just walked into the cafe like he owned it, smiling wide, "Just checking on my big sis," he said, loud enough for customers to hear. My hands trembled pouring a latte. "You us," he whispered when no one was looking. I told my manager, she said he seemed polite. That was the game, he played the golden boy, while I unraveled under fluorescent lights. The mortgage notice arrived with my forged signature. $78,000. I stared at the paper until my vision blurred. Nancy had used my social. Adeline looked it over. "Same pen stroke they used on me," she said. That broke something, not just fear, clarity. This wasn't a mistake, it was theft. Intentional. And this time, I wasn't going to clean up their mess. Sawyer helped me call Patricia Langston, a fraud lawyer. "You're not the first," Patricia said after hearing my name. She pulled up files. Adeline's case was already there. Matching handwriting, same bank, same playbook. Seeing it documented cold legal, it felt like a mirror had cracked. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't dramatic. I was targeted. And finally, I had a paper trail to prove it. I confronted Wallace, showed him the notice, the signatures, everything. He blinked twice and said, "It's not like you were using your credit anyway." My breath caught. No denial, no apology. Just entitlement wrapped in smugness. He thought I'd fold, like always, but I wasn't begging this time. I walked out mid-sentence, slammed the door and didn't look back. Patricia filed a cease and desist. The next morning, Nancy sent 20 missed calls, then text, "You'll ruin us. This is family." "You ungrateful girl." I didn't answer. I saved every message, every screenshot. They weren't pleased, they were proof. Adeline hugged me tight. "You did it," she whispered. But it didn't feel like victory. Not yet, it felt like the start of war. Everett crashed a family barbecue I wasn't invited to and screamed about me pressing charges. Videos surfaced, him shouting, slurring threats, Nancy crying, Wallace just standing there. Online, the comments started, "How could a sister do this?" But some asked, why did they need her money? The tide didn't turn, not yet. But the silence cracked, and that was enough to keep pushing. Caitlin invited me for coffee. "I didn't know it was that bad," she said. I showed her documents, texts, court filings. Her face changed. "They always said you were dramatic," she whispered. That word dramatic had been my muzzle for years. Hearing her say it with shame instead of dismissal felt like oxygen. Maybe I wasn't alone anymore. Maybe people were starting to see. Just when I thought the worst was over, a woman named Emma Cross messaged me, "My cousin. My mom's Rebecca," she wrote. "Your aunt." I hadn't heard that name in 20 years. Emma said she'd seen Nancy's fundraiser. Nancy had claimed I was dying, that they needed donations for my care. Emma didn't believe it. She searched my name, found the court filings. They did the same to her, she said. To my mom, Emma sent scanned letters. Nancy had guilted Rebecca into signing over her retirement account for the family. When Rebecca refused more, she was painted unstable. Same phrases, same script. Emma grew up thinking her mom was sick. Seeing the truth laid bare, decades of lies. I couldn't breathe. It wasn't just me. Nancy had rehearsed this role for years. I wasn't a daughter to her. I was a resource, just like Rebecca had been. Wallace tried to remortgage the house again, but this time the bank flagged it. Patricia had filed alerts with major lenders. He called me screaming, said I'd ruined everything. Then he broke, started sobbing, saying Nancy was sick. They had no options. "She's not sick," I said. "She's manipulative." I hung up. No rage, just a quiet knowing. The mask was off. They were desperate, and I was finally untouchable. A reporter contacted me, said she'd received a tip about elder fraud, and my name came up. "They've done this before?" she asked. I nodded. Sent her Emma's letters, court filings, screenshots. The article dropped a week later, front page, full names, documented scams. My inbox flooded. Strangers shared stories. Others asked how to protect themselves. It wasn't revenge, it was revelation. And I wasn't just reclaiming my story, I was exposing a pattern. Nancy posted a video crying, claiming I'd turned the family against her. "She's not well," she said. "She's always been sensitive." Thousands watched, but the comments weren't kind. People quoted court filings, called out inconsistencies. A woman from our old church commented, "I remember how you treated Violet." The silence was breaking finally, and for once, I didn't have to defend myself. The truth was louder than her tears. Everett tried calling dozens of times, then text, "They're losing everything, please." I didn't know it'd go this far. I didn't reply, not until he said, "I'll tell them the truth if you help." That's when I knew he was still bargaining, still playing angles. He wasn't sorry. He was cornered. And I didn't need his confession, I already had something stronger. Their collapse, written in ink and echoed by the world. Adeline found a box in her attic, old letters from Nancy to their mother. In them, Nancy admitted to manipulating Rebecca, claiming, "She's too weak to handle money." The handwriting matched mine and Emma's letters. We handed them to Patricia. "This proves pattern," she said. "They'll never recover from this." Seeing it all together, years of fraud, gaslighting, exile. It wasn't vengeance, it was liberation. Our silence had protected them for too long. Emma flew in to meet me. We sat in my kitchen, tea steaming between us, and stared at the box of documents. "They almost broke my mom," she said. "But you," her voice cracked. I reached for her hand. For the first time, I didn't feel like a survivor. I felt like a cycle breaker. Two daughters who chose truth over legacy. And maybe, just maybe, we were the new legacy now. The court date loomed. Nancy and Wallace didn't show. Their lawyer withdrew after seeing the compiled evidence. Patricia turned to me and nodded. "This speaks volumes." The judge ruled in my favor. Fraud confirmed. Damages awarded. My hands shook as I signed the final order. It wasn't about money. It was acknowledgement. Validation that I hadn't imagined the abuse. I walked out of that courthouse lighter. Not victorious, just free. Online forums buzzed with the article. Women messaged me privately, some strangers, others former classmates. "Your story is mine." One wrote, "I never knew how to name it." I started sharing resources. Patricia offered free consults. Emma started a blog, detailing her journey with Rebecca. We weren't just healing, we were building. Community from pain, action from silence. Every message chipped away at the shame, and in its place grew something unshakable: solidarity. One night, a letter slipped through my mail slot. No return address, inside a single sentence. "I'm sorry I didn't believe you." It was Caitlin's handwriting. I sat down, hand over my mouth. No explanation, no excuses, just a line that carried years of weight. Sometimes justice doesn't come from courts or headlines. Sometimes it's a quiet note from someone who finally sees. And that quiet, it was the loudest piece. Nancy tried again, this time through a new Facebook profile, under a different name. "Can we talk?" she wrote. "You'll always be my daughter, but daughters harney accounts to drain." I blocked her, reported the profile, then lit a candle. Something Rebecca used to do, not for mourning but release. I didn't hate her, I just refused to be hurt again. Sometimes the strongest love is the one you choose to stop giving. Emma and I hosted a support circle, 6 women. One living room, endless tissues. Some hadn't told their stories before, others had been dismissed too many times. We didn't offer solutions, we offered space, listening without fixing, witnessing without judgment. That night, I saw it. Our family's legacy wasn't just pain, it was survival. We'd all inherited scars, but sitting there, laughing through tears, I realized we were also inheriting strength, together. A podcast invited me to share my story. I hesitated, voice trembling, hands damp, but I said yes. Emma joined me. We spoke about patterns. Silence rebuilding. Thousands listened. One message stuck: "You gave me words I didn't have." That's when it hit me. We weren't victims. We were narrators now, reclaiming language, power, and future. And the echo of that shift, it was louder than any scream Nancy ever threw at me. The holidays came. For the first time, I didn't get guilt cards or passive-aggressive group messages, just peace. I made dinner with Adeline. Emma brought wine. We played music Rebecca loved, laughed until we cried. No eggshells, no whispers, just presence. That night, I lit one last candle, not for grief, for rebirth. Family isn't blood, it's choice. And I'd finally chosen people who didn't ask me to bleed to belong. Saw her help me repaint my living room, new color, new light. "Feels like you," she said. I smiled. Watching the brushstrokes cover the memories, no more staring photo frames, no more haunted corners, just warmth. Emma gifted me a framed quote: "You're not too much." I hung it by the door. Every time I walked past, I remember being enough was never the problem. Asking for too little have been. Rebecca's old friend mailed us a photo: Rebecca, Adeline, and Nancy as girls. Before the fracture, she wrote. It sat on my fridge for weeks. Then one morning, I tucked it away, not to forget but to honor the line I was drawing. They had a past. I chose a future, one not built on silence, sacrifice, or shame. I wasn't erasing history. I was choosing not to repeat it. That was the true legacy. I used to think surviving meant enduring, that if I just held on long enough, things would fix themselves. But healing required more than waiting, it required walking away. Therapy helped me see that. Patterns don't break with time, they break with choice. And every day I chose myself, I loosened the grip of their narrative. That was the first freedom, quiet, steady. Mine. Emma and I built a memory shelf: photos, notes, small things that made us feel whole. Not trophies, not proof, just reminders, pieces of a life not centered around pain. Sometimes I catch her smiling at Rebecca's handwriting. She'd be proud, she says. And I believe her, not because of what we lost but because of what we built in its place. Something solid, something safe. Adeline started journaling again. She reads me lines sometimes, soft raw truths. "They taught us loyalty meant silence," she wrote. "But love should never cost your voice." Her words stay with me, echo in the quiet moments. We weren't just survivors, we were translators, turning pain into language others could use. And in that, we became more than healed. We became witnesses, lighthouses. Out in our stillness, Nancy and Wallace declared bankruptcy. Everett disappeared offline. The family name once used as a weapon now drew whispers and side eyes. But I didn't celebrate their downfall. I honored my peace. Their silence was no longer a threat, it was an absence I'd earned. I didn't need their collapse to rise. But it sure made the air easier to breathe. At the Women's Center, Emma and I hosted monthly meetups. We shared tea, traded survival tips, swapped stories. The group grew. Some went and cried, some raged, all were heard. One said, "You made me feel less alone." That line stayed with me, because if our worst chapters can help someone else rewrite theirs, then none of it was for nothing. Not the silence, not even the scars. I updated the deed to my house, my name, and mine alone. A small action, a loud statement, no co-signers. No shared credit, no ghosts. I framed the paper, tucked it behind the spice rack. Every time I cook, it's their quiet proof that I'm not anyone's wallet, caretaker, or scapegoat. I'm Violet Grant, and I live here, on my terms. Finally, thanks for watching. Hit subscribe to check out more stories on my channel.